So let's talk macro lenses for 2021. I've picked 7 macro lenses for 2021 that I think are the absolutely best ones you can get right now. Or actually 5 of them are the best ones I think you can get, and 2 of them are like really good budget options if you don't want to spend like $400 or $500 on a macro lens. So just a small disclaimer, I mean, these are my favorite lenses. I have certain priorities. For example, I think it's really important with high magnification. I would want my macro lenses to go to 2 times magnification, which kind of removes a lot of options. So I've included mostly such lenses. And also, I don't care that much about autofocus. I am fine with manual focus, and I actually prefer it for macro photography, and I tend to use my macro lenses mostly for macro photography anyways, so I don't care that much about autofocus. So all the lenses in this video are actually manual focus lenses. So that's a small disclaimer. These are my favorite lenses on my YouTube channel. Your opinions or priorities may vary, but these are the ones that I recommend people to get if you want to have a really good macro lens. I picked these 7 lenses so that they cover all the different systems that are out there. So no matter what camera you have, I will have a lens recommendation for you in this video. Yeah, let's go. First up is the Laowa 100mm macro lens from Venus Optics. And you'll see in this video that I have a lot of Laowa lenses in here, and that is not because they are like paying me to say that their lenses are good or anything. It's mostly that I really love their lenses, and they are the only manufacturer basically on the market that make lenses that go from infinity focus to 2 times magnification. Most other macro lenses go to only 1 time magnification, and that I think is a big weakness. It's so much nicer if you're photographing very small things like insects to be able to go to 2 times magnification. That way you can get the insect to actually fill the frame and not be only like a small part of the frame. So I love Laowa's lenses, and the 100mm lens is kind of their king of their macro lens lineup. It is for full frame. It is very good optically, super sharp, just beautiful rendering of this lens. And it comes for many different mounts, but for Canon it actually comes in 2 versions. The Canon EF version, you have one version that is auto aperture or like electronic aperture, so that you can control the aperture with your camera, which means that it is a great help if you have a Canon DSLR and you're focusing, because then it can automatically open up the aperture while you're focusing and then close it down again when you're taking the picture. And they also have the standard version for Canon EF, the one with a aperture ring instead on the lens. So it's up to you what version you want to get. If I would have a Canon EF camera, the DSLR kind, I would probably get the auto aperture version for that one. This lens also comes from Nikon F, Sony FE, Nikon Z, Canon R, and even Pentax K. So they cover a lot of different systems. I recommend this lens for you if you have a full frame camera and if you don't care that much about heavy weight, because this lens is pretty heavy, pretty big. Nothing extreme, but there are smaller and lighter lenses that you can use for full frame cameras that I will come to in a moment. It is pretty cheap in its price for what you get. It's really good value for money compared to many other macro lenses, and it comes heavily recommended from me. Next up is the Laowa 60mm, which I actually own, and this is actually my personal favorite macro lens for full frame cameras. It is kind of a bit older and smaller and more lightweight version of the 100mm, and this lens is actually made for APS-C cameras, but you can use it on full frame cameras. I do, as long as you mostly use it for macro and close-up photography. If you're focusing further away than like 2 or 3 meters, you will see heavy vignetting in the corners, but if you're using it mostly for macro and close-ups, you will not notice much vignetting at all, and the lens performs beautifully on full frame cameras for macro photography. I prefer this lens because it is almost as good or pretty much as good optically as the 100mm, but it is smaller and more lightweight, and that is important to me. The Laowa 60mm also comes for Canon EF, Nikon F, Sony FE, Pentax K mount, and Sony A mount if someone still has that system. And this is actually the only lens in this video that comes for Sony A mount, so if you have such a camera, I can recommend you to get this lens. Next up is the Laowa 65mm. So this is the Laowa 65mm, and it is kind of a modernized version of the 60mm, and it is a lot smaller and more lightweight, as you can see here. Let me try to hold that in a way so it's possible to see. But the difference though is that you cannot use the 65mm on a full frame camera. You will have very heavy vignetting no matter what focusing distance you're focusing on. So this is only for APS-C cameras or smaller sensors. But this is basically a really good macro lens. This one, as the previous two I've talked about, also goes from infinity focus to 2x magnification, which is unique to the Laowa lenses. I cannot understand why no other lens manufacturer is doing this, but maybe they will soon. This lens is awesome, also perfect optically, very small and compact, and definitely my favorite macro lens for APS-C. If you have an APS-C camera, this is the lens you wanna get. It comes for Fuji X, Sony E mount, and Canon EF-M. So if you have like a Canon M1 or M100 and similar cameras, this is, I think, definitely the best macro lens you can get for that system. So let's talk Micro Four Thirds. There are two lenses that I think stand out in the Micro Four Thirds lineup of available macro lenses. One of them is a bit older, and that is the Olympus 60mm macro lens. And of course you can fit this both on Panasonic and Olympus cameras. And this one is just great. Really good optically, good working distance. It is very small and lightweight. It also actually has autofocus, which none of the other lenses in this video have. So that's a good thing if you prioritize that. It goes to 1x magnification only. But on Micro Four Thirds that actually covers as much of the sensor as 2x magnification on full frame, so you get pretty close even if you're shooting like small insects. The other lens for Micro Four Thirds that I love is from Laowa, and that is their pretty new 50mm macro lens. Here we have that one. Yeah, as you can see, this is a small lens. It's very small and lightweight, and the difference between this one and the Olympus 60mm is that the Laowa 50mm actually goes to 2x magnification, which on Micro Four Thirds corresponds to the same framing as you would get with 4x magnification on full frame. So you get very close with the Laowa 50mm. It is only manual focus, so if you value autofocus a lot, I suggest you go with the Olympus. Otherwise, the Laowa is the best one you can get on Micro Four Thirds, according to me. It's really good optically. So, what about budget options? All the lenses I've talked about so far in this video, they cost around $400 or $500. By the way, if you buy a Venus Optics lens, a Laowa lens, I really recommend you to buy it directly from their website. A lot of people ask me where should I buy it. It's out of stock in my country, and that's actually quite common. They are seldom in stock in your local reseller, the Laowa lenses. But I can really recommend you to buy them directly from their website. I always do that. It is free shipping worldwide. And if you decide to buy a Laowa lens from their website, please use one of my links below, because then I get a small affiliate commission from Laowa, and that supports this channel a lot. That could be a good way for you to say thank you for my lens recommendations. So let's talk budget options. What if you don't want to spend $400 or $500 on your first macro lens? There are cheaper options that are really good, luckily, and I'm gonna mention two of them right now. So the first one that I think is a really good value for money is the Meike 85mm macro lens that I reviewed last summer. It goes actually from infinity to 1.5 times magnification, so almost the same magnification as the Laowa lenses. And it is really good optically, nothing to complain about at all. The only downside with this lens, I would say, is that it is weirdly built. It does not feel as well built as the Laowa lenses, and it does not look as good, and it is kind of weird with its two different focusing rings. But that is just like a minor thing. This is a really good lens. It takes beautiful photos and I can really recommend it. It costs around $250, I think, and it comes for a lot of different camera systems. Listen here, it comes for Canon EF, Nikon F, Sony FE, Canon R, Fuji X, and Micro Four Thirds even. So most camera systems this lens is available for, and it covers full frame. So if you're on a full frame camera and want a cheap, good macro lens, the Meike 85mm is a really good option for around $250. What if you want to go even cheaper? If you want to spend like $160 or something like that on your macro lens, then I have a recommendation for you, and that is the 7 Artisan 60mm macro lens that I have also reviewed earlier. It's a really solid budget option, but it does not cover full frame. It only comes for mirrorless APS-C cameras and smaller. So if you have a Fuji X camera, a Sony APS-C camera, like for example a Sony a6000, or a Canon EF-M, or a Micro Four Thirds camera, like one from Olympus or Panasonic, then this lens fits your camera, and it is a really good value for money if you have the cheapest possible macro lens. It goes only from infinity to 1 time magnification, but that is usually good enough, especially if you're on a small sensor. So yeah, that's it for this video, I think. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a good lens recommendation. Please use the links in my video description to check out the different lenses that I've mentioned. And yeah, see you very soon again in the next video. I suggest you do subscribe to this channel if you like macro photography. Most of my videos are about macro photography. I post new videos every week. So do subscribe down here below, and see you next week. Over and out. Bye.